Let the stillness carry me. Let the silence carry me. This is our hope in times when we seek rest, perhaps especially after times of busy activity. When life slows down, when it recedes and boils back, when the vibrant energy of summer gives way to the stillness of autumn and then to winter, at such times we may welcome the new quiet that comes with the change of season. But of course, it's not always easy to rest in stillness. There are times when quiet can be deeply disquieting, when silence can be unsettling. As the COVID-19 pandemic has radically changed our activities and our social lives, it may seem sometimes that our days are losing some of their most interesting features. This happens to some extent in autumn anyway, as Mary Oliver noted. Things are changing. Things are starting to spin, snap, fly off into the blue sleeve of the long afternoon, but perhaps no more so than this autumn, as the brief enchantment of summer is overtaken by particularly long shadows. As we return to our homes, driven in not only by the falling temperatures, but the rising numbers. Mary Oliver uses the word oblivion, and indeed, that's what some of us may feel. Indoors once again, often by ourselves, missing our former routines, we may even find ourselves losing track of time. Is it Thursday or Tuesday? Is it October or August? I myself am grateful for this anchor point of Sunday, which seems to focus my week in a way that's especially important now. Making matters worse are several other factors. The unseasonably warm weather over the last few weeks made November feel suspiciously like mid-June. After the recent time change, the sun setting at 5 o'clock seemed more disorienting than ever. And then there was the recent American election, in which Election Day stretched out over an entire week, prompting even the news anchors to wonder what day it was. And finally, there's the continually displacing effect of Zoom, in which every meeting seems like the one before, because they're all taking place in the no place of the virtual world. As one person said to me recently, it's like we're living in a twilight zone, a state of suspended animation, a limbo period of neither here nor there. This will be especially intense, of course, for anyone who is grieving, living with illness, caring for a loved one, or going through any life transition, as so many people are right now. As Ariel Pardes in Wired magazine put it, the virus has created its own clock, and in Corona time, there is less demarcation between a day and a weekday and a weekend, the morning and night, the present and the recent past. More than one writer has called this new time Blur's Day. Stephen Johnson of the Washington Post offered a week-long course of e-newsletters designed to help readers create meaningful patterns in their days. The the Black poet Marcus Wicker, described the disorienting times in his long poem called Blur's Day Blues. Here's an excerpt. When the fire up and seized me, I had high blood pressure, a history of asthma. My days an antique carousel on the blink, wincing up and down, eyeless ponies, dusty bulbs. I framed my phone inside an L between thumb and middle digit, indexed a scroll of crisscrossed ankles, wrists, brown paper dolls intertwined by headlines, ending in a campaign ad. His poem speaks not only to the painful blur of illness, but also that of systemic racism and injustice, all set against the blurred backdrop of the pandemic's altered reality. In these times, we may seek true harmony, but instead feel like antique carousels on the blink, wincing up and down, up and down. All of it, the repetition of days, the altered patterns, the absence of comfort in the ordinary, the continual stream of difficult news, all of this has led many people to feel not only disoriented, but also deeply fatigued, even dulled, or to some extent apathetic. It's led some people to remember a very old word, acedia. The word acedia goes back to the 4th century, when a Benedictine monk named Evagrius of Pontus called it one of the 8 trains of thought that must be overcome. These 8 bad thoughts were slimmed down to become the 7 deadly sins. Even now, we're familiar with them: pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, and sloth. I sincerely hope that they are not a significant part of your pandemic experience, but acedia may be. Over time, the word fell into disuse, and as far as the list of sins went, acedia was pretty much lumped in with sloth. But in fact, it's a very different state of mind than laziness, and it's also distinct from depression and anxiety. The words apathy, boredom, and torpor come close, but some say the word is impossible to fully translate. Maybe that's because they can't muster the energy to try. Writing in the 5th century, John Cassian wrote that the monk seized by acedia experienced such bodily listlessness and yawning hunger as though he were worn by a long journey or prolonged fast. Constantly in and out of his cell, he looks at the sun as if it were too slow in setting. Jonathan Zecker of Australia Catholic University was perhaps the first person to apply the word acedia to our current situation. In August, he wrote an article called Acedia, the lost name for the emotion we're all feeling right now. He said that by recognizing acedia, we add to our emotional literacy. We give a name to the complex feeling brought on by isolation, uncertainty, and the continual flow of bad news. By naming this experience, we can bring it out into the open, talk about it, and find ways to respond, thus reducing its negative impact. Another writer who wrote helpfully about acedia is Kathleen Norris in her book Acedia and Me: A Marriage, Monks, and the Writer's Life. In her view, much of the restless boredom, frantic escapism, commitment phobia, and enervating despair that plagues us today is the ancient demon of acedia in modern dress. And she was writing in 2008, well before the pandemic. Now, we may think that we're quite different than those early monks, but our current lifestyles may bear some similarities. Lack of distinguishing features between days, repetition of a limited number of activities, and of course, solitude. Monks and nuns were told to pray without ceasing, but in practical terms, this meant actually doing very little, which led some of the faithful to a sense of bland boredom with life in general, which was surely not the point. It was said that acedia could cause the monk to forget the reason of his profession, and that if he succumbs to one diversion after another, he will lose the capacity to pray, and become, therefore, even more prone to despondency. As a result, acedia was viewed as one of the most dangerous states of minds into which a monk could fall. A noted spiritual writer herself, Kathleen Norris was very aware that her devoted readers would be surprised to know that she was suffering from acedia. Perhaps they wouldn't have been so surprised had she been writing during the pandemic. In a very fortunate stroke of timing, the writer and artist Jenny Odell published her book, How to Do Nothing: Resisting the Attention Economy, just last year. The very first sentence reads, "Nothing is harder to do than nothing." And she goes on to quote John Cage, who put it very well when describing Zen meditation. If something is boring for 2 minutes, try it for 4. If still boring, then 8, then 16, then 32. Eventually, one discovers that it is not boring at all. Jenny Odell recommends redirecting our attention in ways that do not require constant stimulation. Exactly the opposite of the doom scrolling on our phones and our other devices that robs us of our sleep and our peace of mind, both of which are so very precious right now. As more research is coming out almost daily on how this experience is affecting us, it's becoming clear that our brains are working at maximum cognitive load as we strain to adapt to new tasks and keep up with the constantly changing stream of worrying information. Being able to direct our attention is especially important now, to find meaning in small things, to open up small spaces for stillness and quiet. Odell writes, regaining control of our attention can also mean the discovery of new worlds and new ways of moving through them. This process enriches not only our capacity to resist the attention economy, but it also enriches our access to the one life we have. The one life we have. It can open doors where we didn't see any, creating landscapes in new dimensions that we can eventually inhabit with others. In so doing, we not only remake the world, we are ourselves remade. So in practical terms then, what can we do to cope with the Blursday blahs or the malaise of acedia? How can we care for our attention? How can we caretake this moment during this very difficult and disorienting time? Several of the writers I've drawn on today recommend creating simple new routines and mastering them, patterns that help distinguish times of day and days of the week. They recommend setting aside time to do nothing, even better, to meditate, do yoga, pray, or spend time quietly in nature. Also, simplify. Let go of routines that no longer serve you, but perhaps pick up a small way, a new routine that allows you to be of service to someone else. Give yourself breaks from pandemic updates and the news. And of course, build regular social contact into the pattern of your week, meeting with people online, on the phone, or safely in person. All of these suggestions, it seems to me, return us to that excellent advice we heard from the Stoic philosopher earlier in the service. With this reading, we can add "what century is it" to our list of questions, because it's ancient wisdom recast for modern times. It reminds us that the challenges we're experiencing are part of the human condition, linking us with people from all centuries, whose lives were very different from ours, and yet, in essence, much the same. Here again is Sharon Labelle's modern interpretation of Epictetus, who lived from the year 50 to 135 of the Common Era. Caretake this moment. Immerse yourself in its particulars. Respond to this person, this challenge, this deed. Quit the evasions. Stop giving yourself needless trouble. It is time to really live, to fully inhabit the situation you happen to be in now. You are not some disinterested bystander. Exert yourself. When your doors are shut and your room is dark, you are not alone. The will of nature is within you, and your natural genius is within. Listen to its importunings, follow its directives. As concerns the art of living, the material is your own life. No great thing is created suddenly. There must be time. Give your best, and always be kind. When our doors are shut and our rooms are dark, we are not alone. The will of nature is within us, as our natural genius is within. Perhaps this is another way to understand the essence that we seek and the stillness in which we can rest. In doing so, may we be carried through these very difficult times in harmony and in peace. Amen.